get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Dave Valentine of DaveValentine.co. Check it out. And Dave, before I formally introduce you, I always like to mention past episodes people should check out. And our mutual friend, Jason Swank, I did 2 episodes with him, and he talked about how he built up his agency to 8 figures and sold it. And then he talked about how he's acquiring agencies and what he looks for in acquiring agencies. I also had Todd Taskey on, who helps agencies sell to private equity. And it talks about kind of valuations, what people should look for. And, you know, in his Second Bite podcast, he kind of interviews people that have had the second bite when they sell to private equity. So check out that. There's a lot of other great agency interviews and others on InspiredInsider.com. And what have you learned from Jason, Dave?
Oh gosh, man, Jason and I have known each other for a decade now. What haven't I learned from Jason? One of the things that happened in my experience was I'd always been in-house doing marketing, and I had never been on the agency side. So when I started my first agency, I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, honestly, like I knew the marketing side. I was a great practitioner, but I really didn't know how to get clients, how to build systems and operations. And so I went to Jason, and he was selling like an agency playbook. I think it was like $1,500 or something. This was a long time ago now. And he had a book out, or maybe that was later. I can't remember. But anyways, man, I've learned so much from him. He was the first person that kind of showed me how to do acquisitions as well. And so he has been someone that has been a mentor, and now we've become peers and friends. And he's somebody that I love to connect other people with, because he's a great human being and an excellent business owner as well. And whenever I find those sorts of people, I hold on to them tightly and cherish their friendship. So Jason's incredible.
I love it. So this episode, by the way, is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships, partnerships, and we do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for companies to launch and run their podcasts. We do strategy, accountability, and all execution around it. You know, for me, Dave, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade than to profile the people and companies I most admire. So if you thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. We'll answer anything you throw our way. So without further ado, Dave Valentine owns 8 businesses that have generated over $1 billion collectively for over 1,000 clients, including major brands, Fortune 100 companies, Target, Time Magazine, American Express. And we'll be talking about the topic too, about burnout. If you've had a business, I think you probably have experienced burnout. At least I have. At a young age, his doctor kind of gave him a rude awakening and basically said, you're preparing yourself for a heart attack. So, and he was overwhelmed with stress. And now he runs multiple companies from the mountains. And it sounds like a Tommy Boy or Chris Farley in a house by the river.
Yeah, there you go.
with 3 waterfalls. But Dave, thanks for joining me.
I'm so excited to be here, man. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Jeremy. I'm loving it.
One of the things when I do a lot of research ahead of time that I want to talk about is I think we both geek out on direct response and sending lumpy mail and also outrageous offers. Okay.
Yeah.
And people can check this out on davevalentine.co / or / whatever the slash is.
Yep.
Yes. So when you think of outrageous offers, talk about that. What is an outrageous offer?
Yeah. So there's 2 forms of outrageous offers, right? So one form is I want to give people an experience, get them into the door, whether that's a digital storefront or a physical storefront, so that they will make other purchases. So a great example of this is Costco's $4.99 rotisserie chicken. What do? They still have it for $4.99. In fact, they put out the data. They lost $21 million on chickens last year. But here's the deal. They're so smart. Costco's a brilliant company. They put it next to other prepared foods, which are high margin products for them. They put it next to the wine and the beer, high margin products for them. And when you go into Costco and you go all the way to the back, what do you instinctively do? Oh yeah, I forgot we're having our friends over on Friday night. We should pick up some chips and dip. And oh man, we need this and we need that. And as one friend said to me, yeah, it's at least a $250 fine to step into Costco. And that's true, right? So that's one version of an outrageous offer, is getting people in the door. The second one is, hey, I'm going to create something that sounds too good to be true, and it's actually really too good to be true for the business. It's not too good to be true for the consumer. It's too good to be true for the business. One of my favorite ways to talk about this, Jeremy, is right now, AT&T is doing a deal where if you switch, they will give everyone that switches an iPhone 14. Okay, at retail, it's like $1,000 per phone. So if you have a family of 4, they're all having a cell phone, you get $4,000 in hardware. Well, first, you got to remember, AT&T's not paying $1,000 for that piece of hardware. They're maybe paying $500 or $600. Okay, well, there's that. Well, then AT&T knows. They're not dumb. They figured out the numbers on this. If it's a family of 4, they all do an unlimited plan. It's $250, $300 a month. So they're going to make that money back easily in the first year. What do they always do? Hey, let's sign you up to a 2-year agreement. So that's a version of an outrageous offer. It sounds too good to be true. I'm getting this for free. And in reality, what you're doing is you're exchanging time for money, which is what always happens. And so a lot of times what I find, Jeremy, is that small businesses, and so I would consider anything under $10 million a year a small business, small businesses avoid that like the plague. They don't want to give out an outrageous offer, because what happens if they can't deliver, right? And so a lot of times what I end up doing is I end up coaching service-based companies and SaaS-based companies. Hey, how do you create outrageous offers, something that sounds too good to be true, that's results-oriented for your clients and customers, but they actually have to take some action in order to get the guarantee. They have to take some action in order to get the offer. And whatever that is, there's so many different ways you can structure these offers, and the way that you present them really makes a difference in whether or not people engage with them. And what we've found over and over again for the 8 companies that we own is that when we have an outrageous offer and we find the one that really sticks with people, what instinctively happens is those companies just start to skyrocket in revenue, in clients, and customers. And it becomes a thing that it's really easy for people to engage with. And then it's also easy to acquire and keep customers around.
Yeah, and you walk through, and people could check it out on the website /OO, but you have 7 modules. You actually walk people through this outrageous offer. I'd love to hear an example, because you help a lot of different companies, SaaS companies, agencies. What's an outrageous offer example that you can, if you could think of one from an agency standpoint and also from a SaaS standpoint, maybe start with the agency standpoint. If an agency owner is listening, what would be an example of an outrageous offer that you've seen work with an agency?
Yeah, so we still have a client that we've been working with for a long time. They're a design agency. They do website design. They do logo design. They'll also do some social media management once they figure out if you're a good customer or not. One of the things that they do on a regular basis to have 20 plus business development meetings a month is they have offered to do free mockups. So they'll do 3 free logo mockups, or they'll do a brand design board. And they basically say, hey, let's sign an agreement. And then the first thing that we're going to do after we sign that agreement is we're going to have an onboarding call. Usually it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then the next session, which is a week later, we're going to show you some work. And if you don't like it at that point, you can get your money back, and we'll call the contract null and void. Because what's people's biggest apprehension to doing a website project, doing a logo overhaul, it's not necessarily the money. It's, are you going to actually be able to capture and codify what I tell you our brand actually is? And if you can overcome that, then they'll pay you to do it. So this agency's had some great success with that. Another one would be we have an digital ad agency. They've done a thing where for the first 3 months, there's no minimum ad spend. They take a small cut of the ad spend. So they'll have people that come in and say, hey, my total budget's usually $15,000 a month in ad spend. I am not satisfied with my agency. I want to test you guys out for 90 days. I only want to give you $1,000. So they only make $200 per month off the first couple months. They're making $600 sale. However, what does it do? It gives them an opportunity to demonstrate their value, how they're different, how they work with the client, and they have an incredible close rate going from, hey, let's just do a minimum ad spend to, hey, let's fully engage. And sometimes those numbers are quite large, right? I mean, I've heard stories from that particular agency where they're like, man, we had somebody sign up and they're doing a test, and the test is $75,000 over 3 months, right? So it's different things that can kind of engage. And then the one that we have for Avadel itself, because it's an SDR agency, it's a conditional guarantee of a minimum number of meetings for the entire year. So, hey, listen, we'll book you at least 100 meetings or 200 meetings or 400 meetings. We have one client that they want 6,500 meetings in a year. And in order to get the guarantee, they have to do something in return, right? They can't just say, hey, let's go and not have to show up. They have to give us some things in order to get that guarantee. And that's part of how they get it. The cool part is, though, and this is what I love, Jeremy, is that it makes it so that it's really easy to say yes, because if we don't hit the minimum number of guaranteed meetings and they did what they needed to do, then we will work for free for 90 days. And then if we still don't hit it, we'll give them a prorated amount back for the meetings we didn't book. What that ends up doing is it takes out all the risk, essentially, for people to engage. And it also gives Avadel, as an SDR firm, a long runway to hit the goals we've outlined.
I love that. Part of, I'd love for you to talk about maybe the components of the outrageous offer, because one of the things you're talking about is you are really good at doing risk reversal. So even if, the offer is great, but also, listen, if it doesn't work, even how we say it does, you have that risk reversal so they can kind of feel safe, right? And the guarantee of the meetings, right? Or you'll work to get those meetings, or you'll give them money back. What other components do you think of when someone's mapping out an outrageous offer?
So one of my favorite, if you want to map out an outrageous offer today, there are 2 exercises out of the 7 modules that I've put together for outrageous offers in that e-course that are really helpful. Dare I say, the most important of the 2. So number 1 is you have to understand what is the main thing that your SaaS product, your luxury watch brand, whatever it is that you're selling, what's the main thing? And so in my opinion, there are 4 things. There's only 4 things that you get. So number 1, you can get time back, right? So think about this. If you're selling a lawn care service, if you're selling a cleaning service, you're giving people time back, right? They are paying so they don't have to spend their time doing those things. That's a big deal. So number 1 is time. Number 2 is relationships. Okay. People think, oh, I buy a Mercedes-Benz. That's a status symbol, right? It's going to improve your relationships, right? It's going to increase the perceived value that you bring to the table. You could be helping people in their dating life. I know that a big thing right now is there are consultants that teach people how to appear more attractive and desirable on dating apps. It's a world that is totally foreign to me because I've been married for 14 and a half years. So I don't know about any of this stuff, but it's super interesting, right? So time, relationships, health is the next one. It could be mental health, better health. We're going to help you be more mentally, emotionally healthy. Or it could be physical health, right? Hey, come to the gym. We're going to help you get in shape. You only get one body, so treat it well. The last one is, and this is where all of my companies really reside, is we're going to make you more money. Now, it could be more money on top line revenue. It could be more money on bottom line revenue. But that's where all my companies exist, including the flight school that I own. The fun part about the flight school is we have so many of our students want to take the career path. They want to go from being 18, 19-year-old to going into the airlines. You don't need a degree. And you can make 6 figures year one at a regional airline. And so they look at that and they go, well, listen, I'm going to invest about half of what I would at a major university to get my private pilot's license, to get all the certifications I need. And then I'm guaranteed a significant paycheck at the end of a 2.5, 3-year process of just accruing enough time to go fly with the airlines. So it's really getting tight on what is the main thing first, right? What is the thing that you're actually selling? Because it's not the Rolex, right? It's what does the Rolex do for the person that's buying it? So that's number one. Then number two is this. Anytime that I'm selling something, I'm like, what are the objections? Objections are your friends. Objections tell you how you can make your product and service better, how you can make your offering better, how you can beat the competition. What are the objections that you hear? So in my first agency, what I always heard was, we were a digital ad agency. Dave, I would pay you however much money you told me to if you could guarantee ROI. Guarantee ROI, I'll give you as much money as you want. Well, this was when Facebook and Instagram ads were kicking, man. This was pre-iOS update. And we were able to tell people, listen, we will guarantee you the ROI, because that's what I heard over and over again. Dave, you're a nice guy. We like you. We think that we would do well, but we're not sure. So I started to really uncover and be Sherlock Holmes-like about who and why are our best clients getting the results they get. Could I create something that would have a similar pattern of results? So one of the things we found, Jeremy, this is really interesting for everyone that's listening, we would run polls on different e-commerce sites. And before someone would exit, this poll would pop up at the bottom. Hey, why didn't you make a purchase? We would give them some pre-populated hypotheses that we had, and then we'd also leave a blank one that was just, they could fill in the blank. What was fascinating was across multiple industries, across multiple different e-commerce sites that were selling completely different products, there was a consistent number. 48.4% of people that went to make a purchase didn't make a purchase because there was no free shipping on the products they wanted to purchase, right? So imagine that. So one of the things that we did for our ROI guarantee for that agency was we said, listen, we will give you an ROI guarantee, but you have to do a few things. One thing is you have to give us free shipping. You can bake it into the cost. That's totally fine, but you got to give us free shipping. Amazon has ruined the consumer's mindset. They expect to not have to pay for it. Now they'll wait 3 to 7 days to get it, and they would pay extra for 2-day shipping if you want to offer it. But you have to offer free shipping in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just, hey, spend $35 and get free shipping, that's okay. So the second thing we said was you have to also give us every single month one product that we can sell at either MAP pricing or 20% above cost. And then what we would do is on the back end, we would add some things in Shopify or WooCommerce. We'd add some different related products and we'd make that an upsell. And so then it really increased. If they were willing to give us that and they gave us consistent ad spend, we would guarantee them money. So that's the thing that I would say as you go into this is it's like, number one, what's the main thing? What are you actually selling? Number two, your objections or opportunities. Use those so that we can actually say, hey, listen, what's something that we could create that people find irresistible? And objections are not your enemies, they are your friends. So when you get them on sales calls or someone says, I don't know, great, take notes.
Dave, you talk about the outrageous offer. In order to offer the outrageous offer, you need to get it in front of people. And that's also what you help people do is you will reach out to companies. I'd love to hear what are some of the mistakes that you have seen people or that you've learned over the years with outreach?
People go too small. Most of the time, people go too small. There's so much.
What do you mean by go too small?
Yeah. So I've talked with some entrepreneurs. They're like, oh yeah, I've done cold email outreach. I've done LinkedIn outreach. I've done lumpy mail, even some of them, right? Like, and it doesn't work for me. Cool. How much did you do? Well, we were sending out, like 100 emails a day. It's too small, right? Too small. We were doing LinkedIn outreach. Great. How many? We were doing like 25 connections a day. Too small. What ends up happening for the most part, and there's some people who would snap back on this, and so I think this is a good conversation, Jeremy, because some people are like, well, most people have just gone too big and they've messed it up, and that's possible, but the too big is like so large that it's absurd, right? So if you're sending 50,000 emails a day, it's too big, okay? But that's a far cry from 100. So maybe send out 5,000, right? You're doing 25 LinkedIn connections a day through an automation. Create some mocked up LinkedIn profiles, make them SDR people or outreach people or salespeople in your company, have them do outreach 25 a day because there's some LinkedIn stuff that's rough. When you send out lumpy mail, don't send 10 pieces, send 1,000, right? And sometimes people are like, well, that's cost prohibitive. Yeah, it's also really cost prohibitive not to grow your company. It's really painful. And so it's really just saying like, hey, if you have the mentality of next month I'm broke, next month the company is out of business, you get to a spot where you start to make really bold, decisive moves that get you where you want to go. Now, your company doesn't have to be in trouble. You could be crushing it. You could have, millions of dollars in the bank. You're fine. You've got lots of runway. It's the mentality of we have to hit it again. We have to hit it again. We have to hit it again. And if you have that, then you go further. The last thing that I'd say is this, Jeremy, every single platform, every medium that you go after to try and do cold outreach, even if you're doing it on social, like direct messages and stuff, there are people that are experts in that space. Find them. They do podcasts like this. They write articles. They write blogs. They do video courses that are $39. Take them, consume some information and some knowledge before you go do it, because there are subtle nuances that are very specific and unique to the different platforms that you may reach out on. And what and how you leverage those makes a big difference for your results.
Yeah. No, I love it. With the lumpy mail piece, right? What are some of the fun things that you have sent? Like I mentioned in the top of the interview, you had clients, Fortune 100 companies, Target, American Express. I don't know if there's a couple of favorite stories that stick out of how you got in front of those companies.
Yeah. So some of the things that we did was we used a lot of lumpy mail. We sent years ago, I met a guy who we use as a vendor now. His name's Nathan Butorak, and he and I have become best of business buds. He's the guy that if he calls me, I pick up the phone, we chat, we pick up the conversation where we left off. And he's somebody that I deeply admire as an entrepreneur and as a person. He's been sending piñatas in the mail for 8 years now. And so we sent some piñatas in the mail to a wide variety of Fortune 500 CMOs, directors of marketing, VPs of marketing. We sent messages in a bottle in tubular mail. We sent what we call our emoji grams. So it's 13-inch high by 13-inch wide, corrugated plastic. So it's very sturdy. That's die cut into an emoji. And then it has a message on the back. We put it in like a high-end Ziploc baggie and we send that. So I've used poop emojis. We actually got a meeting with AT&T because we sent one of their VPs of marketing a poop emoji, and he said, "This is the funniest crap I've ever gotten." And he was like, "No one has been that bold to send me poop in the mail. I got to talk to you." The last thing that we did that was really outrageous, Jeremy, was this, because this was a while ago now. It was back when Yeti coolers, like the large ones, were hard to find, and be the coolest thing. So we found some people that were like, we really want to work with these big clients. And what I did was I put the large Yeti cooler in the mail. I put a padlock on it, and we mailed it to big CMOs. It's like $500 per item, and that was without shipping, right? And so then they get it, and there's a note on top says, "Hey, really love what you do. I know that we can help. Have lunch with me. I'll bring the key." That was a huge hit. People thought it was great, right? And so the interesting thing was, Jeremy, I got 4 out of 5 of those coolers. I got a meeting. The 5th one, I guess they just used bolt cutters. I don't know what they did. But it was so different and unique, and it really makes you stand out whenever you have people that are sending a singular shoe in the mail, getting my foot in the door kind of thing. It's overdone. Lumpy mail is fun because you need to do something unique that differentiates you, and we've done a lot of crazy fun things.
Dave, is there someone that you had, whether it was a virtual mentor or personal mentor, with direct response? Maybe you studied someone. I mean, I think I went on a 6-month stint of interviewing some of the top direct response marketers. So I love what you're saying. I'm curious who you follow or have followed, or resources that you'd recommend someone take a look at.
So I really cut my chops in direct response by writing ads. Digital advertising is this tight feedback loop of understanding direct response. And I have had people that were helpful in the past. Honestly, Jeremy, a lot of the books that helped me a decade ago are no longer relevant. In fact, it's so funny. I went back and reread one of them, and I was like, oh my word, this was so revolutionary in 2013, and it is so outdated in 2023. And so I don't have a great mentor for that. What I will say is this: if you're really trying to figure it out, one of the ways that I made some of our outreach team very, very good at doing direct response copywriting was I had them write ads for some of our internal brands, and they were able to see in real time in 24 hours, hey, this ad's working or it's not. Why isn't it working? What's up with that? What is it, the visual? Is it the copy? What if I turn the copy into this? And so it starts to become a feedback loop that is so sharpening. And what's interesting to me about this, Jeremy, is that people could go spend $5 a day, $10 a day, running ads for their own companies, seeing how people do or do not respond. And that would actually inform a lot of how they move their marketing forward. I'm sure that there are good resources out there. My favorite experiences have just been trial and error, because a lot of the stuff that I learned from just no longer works, which is sad, but true.
What I want to talk about, you work with, among your companies, you do mentorship and you help consult with companies, and you see similar issues, right? In, let's say, the $500,000 to $2 or $3 million range, you see similar problems. So I'd love for you to walk through what problems are common amongst those kind of growing companies.
Yeah, it's interesting. The problems they have is that it's easy to get stagnant, right? Because I just said this to an entrepreneur yesterday, and it totally blew her mind. Only 7% of companies in the country do 7 figures. And a lot of people go, oh, I'm just doing 1.5 million. I'm so small. I'm like, no, you're actually in the elite. Like, you're in a rarefied air. And that's a turn for a lot of people to go, oh, I'm in rarefied air. The thing that I find over and over again, though, Jeremy, is that people get complacent. They go, well, we're doing 1.5 million this year. We're doing 1 million. We're doing 700,000. I just want to grow by 15%. If I grow by 15%, that'll be great. If I grow by 10%, I'm fine. As long as we stay the same. If I don't have to work as much and we regress and I do like $300,000 less this year, that's okay, as long as I don't have to work too hard. And the reality is, it's like that old Tommy Boy adage, since you brought up Tommy Boy earlier, Chris Farley earlier, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no third direction, right? And there has to be a sense of hunger for growth. Now, whether that's growing the bottom line, which is really, really helpful, or growing the top line, either or works. And you have to have some growth. You have to give vision to your people as you grow as well. Why are they sticking around? It's not just because of the paycheck. They have to believe that you're going somewhere, that they're playing a irreplaceable role in the vision of where you're going as a company. So number one is the thing that I'm seeing is people are just not hungry. Number two, they're not building out outrageous offers that actually help them scale, right? So they're not leveraging that. They're networking their way to a small, high six-figure, lower seven-figure business. And that's very doable, by the way. It's very achievable to really build up. I mean, I've seen some businesses network their way to 5 million. That's the biggest I've ever talked to. Doesn't mean you couldn't do more. It's just, that's the biggest I've ever talked to. And at some point, you're going to have to figure out your lead generation. At some point, you're going to have to figure out how to consistently, predictably generate leads and revenue. And that's really the thing that's next. In line is not just a lack of desire to grow, but a lack of ability to grow, which I think absolutely plays into that lack of desire. And then the final thing is they're burning out. Entrepreneurs I talk to all the time, they're just exhausted. They're burnt out. They don't have a vision for what they want. And it's incredibly challenging, right? Like if you're not doing self-care, listen, I'm saying it's incredibly challenging as someone who experientially knows. If you're not taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, you're going to have a burnout moment or 30 in your entrepreneurial life. You have to take care of yourself. And those are the top three things that I'm seeing entrepreneurs and business owners do right now in 2023. I just keep having the same three conversations, sometimes in one conversation with one person, but I keep having those same three conversations over and over again.
Dave, what's your daily or weekly list, self-care checklist? I know when you were like 29, that the doctor was like, you're going to have a heart attack if you keep this up. Right. And sometimes, I don't know the exact stats, but the funny thing is, my background's in biochemistry as a chiropractor, and, even, I don't know the exact stat, but even people who have a heart attack, there is a large percentage that don't change their habits, right? It's just hard. What are some of the things that you have on your list daily or weekly that allow you to avoid burnout and take care of yourself?
So there's a beautiful study done recently that showed that if you look at a green living plant for 3 minutes, it reduces your cortisol by a significant amount. I forget what the exact percentage was. It was somewhere between 30 and 50%. It was high. And so one of the things that I do on a daily basis is I walk outside in nature. Whether I'm at my place in Texas on the lake, or I'm up at the river house in the Pacific Northwest, I'm always going to get time in nature every day. And that means could be raining, could be snowing, could be quite windy, but there's something about being outside. We have not evolved as a species to be indoors. And so this whole thing of sitting for our job and looking at a computer screen and being in four walls is new to the human race, like exceptionally new. And so it's part of our biochemistry to get outside. So I get outside and I walk every day. I spend time in nature. 3 or 4 times a week, I will lift weights. It's something that I did as a kid, playing multiple sports. It's a space that it doesn't feel like I'm working out. It feels totally natural and normal. I meditate every day, or close to every day. Some days I miss, but for the most part, I meditate every day, 30 minutes, do my thing. I also make things into rituals. Like making coffee is a ritual for me. I have specific mugs that I love to drink out of because they have a vibration, a timbre. They have a feeling to them, like they're doing something to my soul. And a lot of it is slowing down and finding stillness where you can as well. So I do a lot for my mental health, my physical well-being, my emotional health. And I'm always changing it up because my personality likes to change things up. So even subtle things like, hey, this week I'm going to do really heavy weights, and I'm going to really get after it. Next week, I'm going to do light weights, high reps. This week, I'm going to focus on getting 15,000 steps in a day, whether that's running or walking or some combination, whatever that is. I'm always changing it up to keep my mind engaged in that way. That being said, there's the consistency of always keeping my body moving, always doing meditations, always finding space and time and stillness, creating rituals that help. So, yeah.
I love those hacks, Dave, like staring at the green living plant that decreases the levels. There is a book called The Blue Zones, and it's like 9 lessons for living longer. It's a really good book. People check it out. But I remember listening to that book, and one of the hacks is, I think they studied people that live to over 100 in different areas. And there's several blue zones in the world, but a handful of nuts helps longevity a day. That was one thing from the book. But no, I love that. Let's talk about your book, right? The core values. And what is like a couple favorite stories from that book people should check out?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do when I consult with people is we're really big believers in core values driving business. And so we have the same 6 core values for all 8 of the companies. And it's really interesting as I've talked with other entrepreneurs and business owners, they may or may not have core values. They certainly don't do what we do with them, which is we hire, promote, and fire our employees based around the core values. Literally, they get scored on the core values every quarter. We have quarterly reviews with them, and that's how we rate them as employees. It's also how we have and there's an internal towards self manifestation of each core value. There's a core value, how we express that core value to teammates. And there's how we express that to customers, students, clients, right? And so as far as some of the good stories, so one of the things that's really helpful is there's a certain order to the core values. And the order is important based on where you are in the org chart. So if you're a frontline employee, you're working with clients, you're like engaging with customers, you're working with students, you're not in leadership essentially, then the order is really simple. It's tenacity is number 1. Hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to get the job done, to get the result. How are we going to solve the problem? We're going to figure it out. Curiosity is number 2. Initiative is number 3. Accountability is number 4. Transparency is number 5, and humanity is number 6. So all 6 of those are core values that we hold. They're all really important. What's interesting is in order to move into leadership, Jeremy, you have to have the top 3 in spades. You have to have tenacity, curiosity, and initiative. You won't get into leadership unless you're really demonstrating those on a regular basis. However, this is one of the stories that I love to tell. When you get into leadership, we reverse the order. Because in order to be a great leader, you have to lead with humanity, transparency, and accountability. You have to. And it's just a mind shift for a lot of our team. They're like, oh, I can't just burn through people demonstrating tenacity in a way that's like, we got to get it. It's like, hey, I'm going to come alongside you. We're going to do this together. That's good leadership. Let's get you there. Let's all go there together. And so that's one of the things that makes our core values unique, is that there is an order to them. But as you elevate, the order changes of importance, and how those need to be expressed changes. So yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. I've got a lot of entrepreneurs that have just started to take them wholeheartedly.
What's an example, Dave, of a core value that's built into the hiring process?
Siri thought that was a good talk.
Well, that's Siri.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeremy, say
What's
it again.
built into the hiring process, the core value, that's how you build it into the hiring process. What would be an example of that?
Yeah. So great question, Jeremy. So one of the things that our head of HR does is she will ask seemingly innocuous questions at the beginning of, she always does first round interviews with everybody over the phone. And she'll ask for stories. Hey, tell me about a time where you couldn't figure out a problem. What did you do? What's interesting about the storytelling aspect of how people, solve work problems is she may get a check mark next to multiple core values in their problem solving ability. So they may say something like, well, I was encountered with this problem at work and no one knew how to fix it. And so I started doing research. Okay, well, that shows curiosity, right? I started doing research and I kept looking for this solution. And I found out that no one on the internet knew what was going on. So I decided to run some experiments. Okay, that's initiative, right? And in those experiments, I found that these things worked and those things didn't. So then I used those in these campaigns that I was running and so, okay, great, that's tenacity. And then I found out that didn't work as well in practice as it did in the sandbox area. So then I had to go back to the drawing board. And so it's this, and then they may say, and I had to go back to my superiors and tell them like, hey guys, I'm working on this. No one has a great solution, but I'm figuring it out. Well, that's accountability, right? And so it's really asking for stories and seeing what people have to say in that. And then once they get through that first net, they actually go to a second round interview with their direct report and usually someone that's in leadership as well. And they ask similar type questions, but phrased differently. And they're asking specific situations and how would you handle this and how would you handle that? And it's just asking the questions in an open-ended way to see if they come up. Because what we found, Jeremy, is that these core values are in some people. We don't need to put them into them. It's in them. They embody them already. And they will come out if you ask for, tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story.
Love it. I want to highlight a little bit more about what you do. I mean, with the consulting side and the outreach side. And one of the companies you helped was a high-end wholesale cannabis company. So I'd love to hear some of the advice and some of the things that you did with them.
Yeah. So they came to us. They were selling cannabis in DC. They have a very high-end brand. It's an artisanal dessert cannabis-infused product. And they wanted to break into the California market. There are only about a little less than 400 cannabis shops in California, which was a shock to me since they have 50 million people that live there. But they have all these laws around where these cannabis shops can and can't be. And it's hard to find a location where you could physically have one. That being said, the thing that we talked about was I was like, well, what does everybody else do to get into these locations? Because they were working with Avadel, the SDR firm, and they didn't have a great offer. So they were doing what everybody else does. Hey, we'll give you free samples. Which, frontline employees at cannabis shops are like, cool, dude, I'll take a cake pop with cannabis in it. That sounds delicious. That sounds great. How much do they retail for? Oh, $15 a piece? Heck yeah, dude, I'll take 12, right? So that works to get the frontline employees bought in. However, to get the store manager, the purchasing manager, that they don't care, right? So how do you stand out to them? So I sat down with this company because they were getting 1 or 2 meetings a month with Avadel, and I knew that the problem was their offer. It wasn't an Avadel problem. This was an offer problem. So I sit down and we start talking, and I said, okay, how much is one store location worth in wholesale low end? Like low end, what is it worth? And they go, $40K a year. I was like, wow. I said, how much is it high end? And they go, well, we've got one client that pays $200,000 a year for our products. I was like, great. Here's what we're going to do. We've got 2 offerings. Offering number 1, someone wants to take on your products as a wholesale product, let's do a co-branded billboard within a 5-mile radius of the location. The closer, the better. I was like, now listen, in some parts of California, LA, San Francisco, San Diego, this is not going to be a cheap purchase. It may be $8,000. However, what's it going to do? People, when they go into cannabis shops, most of the time, this has been my experience when I go into them and I talk with people, they go in, they have no idea what they want. I want something that's going to help me sleep well. My knee hurts. I want to get really high, whatever that is, right? They're like, everybody comes in with a thing that they're trying to solve. They don't come in necessarily looking for, I want this product. Some people do, but it's a very small percentage of the population. So my point to them was, listen, you're going to tell people what they should go in and ask for. I said, it's going to do two things. Number one, store locations are going to love that because they just got free advertising for taking you on as a wholesale client. I said, number two, it's going to drive product sales at that location. So you're going to make all that money back in the first month or two just because you started telling people, well, here's what I should go get. They're like, oh, that's amazing. That's great. They're like, what else? I was like, well, you guys have this, it's these artisanal cake pops or these delicious little chocolate thing. I've never had them, but I've been told that they're delicious. They're really cool looking, fancy things. I was like, what if you guys do an event? What if you have a chef that makes the products or some sort of product there in person? Like, what if they were cooking cake pops, whether they were THC infused or not, and you were giving them away? And they're like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I was like, yeah, because here's the thing. When you think about a THC shop, they're kind of dark and dank, and there's a little bit of like a mystery and whatever, and there's no life. I was like, what if you brought the life into it? They're like, oh, that's brilliant. So they went from booking 1 or 2 meetings a month to over a 6-month period, they booked over 150 meetings with out of the 400 potentials. They actually had to put the Avadel campaigns on pause because they're like, we can't take on any new customers. We have no more ability to do wholesale. We're totally tapped on our production. We have to hold off. And so that's the power of an outrageous offer. Nothing else changed. Their name was the same. Their deliverability was the same. The direct mail pieces were the same. The only thing that changed was their offer. And they saw just such a massive increase in engagement because they were doing something that no one else has been willing to do in their space.
I love it. Dave, I want to be the first one to thank you. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your journey. And I want to point people to your website. To go to davevalentine.co, and then you can put the /OO to look through his steps to the outrageous offer, which we talked a little bit about. And Dave, any other places online we should point people towards?
Yeah, if people want to go check out any of my social medias, platforms, my handle is @RealDval, DVAL. I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and I post pretty regularly. So anybody can come and engage there.
Dave, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, brother.
Also, I want to give a big shout out to Devin Sizemore. You can check his website out at yourrp.com. He's on a journey of 10,000, helping 100 people generate 100 referrals. So you can check out his website. He's really a super connector. So thanks, everyone.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.